Hey everyone, we are live to recap our incredible Mastery Chat conversation that literally just ended. It was an hour-long conversation over on Twitter, and I have the all-star Denis Sheeran with me who hosted. And Denis, I know we're going to get into all the questions, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself and all the things, but I just want to put it out there because I feel like everybody else knows I'm such a fan of you. I'm so excited to recap this conversation, and I can't wait to go into these really interesting reflections that we had during this chat. So for everybody listening, feel free to comment. We want to hear from you. Tell us where you're listening from. Tell us where you're watching from, and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Denis, it's so good to be live with you. How are you feeling after that hour-long conversation?
Really good. It's funny because I feel like I get a chance to have these these PD conversations with with teachers and groups, and we do a lot of talking back and forth. And this time, my voice isn't tired, but I feel like I said so much and I heard so much, and I'm loving the fact that I actually have a voice left after this conversation. But I'm not sure I have a lot of focus left. There was so much power in what teachers and educators and leaders are thinking that I want to just get my educational workout on and be out there and just like do some heavy lifting with them to make these changes real. So.
I couldn't agree more. I cannot wait to dive into some of those key questions, maybe some surprising moments in the chat. For all of you watching, feel free to throw your comments in here. I know we're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, but we just want to say hello to all of you. Thank you for joining the chat. But if you also weren't able to join the chat for whatever reason, don't worry, because we're going to start the conversation off here, and you can always go read all the messages over on Twitter by simply searching #MasteryChat. So you can participate later as well. Denis, I won't lie, I'm going to get into this chat, but I just posted a story on Instagram kind of reminiscing a little bit about how I had followed you for a while, and I really got to meet you after sitting in the audience of an incredible keynote that you gave. So you being able to say, oh yeah, I do PD all the time, it's nice to have my voice like relaxed. I was engaged during that keynote for the full hour. You had my attention. I would have sat there for 2 more hours to listen to you. So you definitely have some power there.
I got to be honest with you. My wife's nowhere around, but I just got to let her know somehow that I at least have one fan out there. So I'm happy to hear it. But I remember that moment. We were in Indiana, and we met after this conference, or during this conference while I was speaking. And it's those real moments of, hey, we know each other. Our digital paths have crossed before. Yeah. We actually know something about each other, except how to pronounce your last name, which I totally thought was Hughart. And it's a real moment that actually ties right back into the chat from tonight, where I forget one person who said, like, one of the things that constrains us is Zoom and Google Meet and being at a distance with kids. It's from getting to know them. Like, we got to know each other on a screen without our voices. We got to know each other with just some words and some commonality. And we all learned how to reach out to each other and get further and further along to meet somebody else where they were in their learning journey. And then when we saw each other, we're like, I know you, we're family. And it seemed to me like that's a possibility with kids. It's a possibility with students to use what we know how to do here and leverage that for really powerful moments. And if my screen shakes a little bit, it's because I always move my chair a lot because I'm crazy. So
no, it's funny that you say that. That is actually something that we continue to go back to. We, as in like the Teach Better team, our network, the majority of our network are educators around the world. I haven't met half. I haven't met a third. I have met almost none of the people that have decided to come together in this Teach Better family and build a relationship. And I remember being with Tiffany Ott, one of my best friends, Tiffany Ott. I'm sure so many of you are connected to her. She's an incredible educator, also part of the Teach Better Speakers Network. And her and I had met online. We met at the conference, or we were hanging out at the conference. I had met her a few times before. And then we were connecting with you, and it was just another connection, another kind of like piece of the puzzle. So I love that you continued to highlight this idea of, you know, the relationships that we can form with our students can be just as powerful and utilize the same pieces of the connections that we form with our PLN, which most of them are virtual. That's just the reality of how this works right now.
Yeah, and it's not just that it strengthens a connection. It's like another strand in the rope, in the weaving, in the tightening of it. And you've seen those. Like I was in Banff, Canada, and by the way, if anybody out there is from Canada and you ever want me to come back, I would love to go back. So let's go. And they actually were showing the differences in the way that they had created those big metal woven. What is it? Like the things that pull the tram up and whatnot, you know, and you could see the strength as it grew and grew and grew. And really, all these connections are adding another strand so that should one of them break, one of us is weak, something doesn't go as planned, the strand still holds. And like we're building, it's not just moving the relationships just so that we can be close. It's so that we have a deeper webbed connection and not just layers, you know, layers can brush off.
You know, Dennis, it's funny, and I know I've said this to you before, so I apologize, but I want to make sure I emphasize it here. I love chatting with you because you are so easy to talk to. Your metaphors always make sense to me, and I feel like you make things sound simple. And in a world where nothing seems simple, and bringing relevancy into our classrooms and really focusing on personalizing student support seems so far-fetched, you're the guy I always want to talk to, because I'm like, Dennis makes everything sound like I can do it. Like, I think that's a great element. So before we get into actually the chat, I know we've alluded to a little bit. We already got ahead of ourselves. I'd love to have you introduce yourself, share a little bit about the work that you do, things like that. That just in case somebody's listening and isn't connected to you.
Sure. And somebody just called me a philosopher in the chat. I appreciate that. So here's me. Again, my name is Dennis. I was a high school math teacher for 13 years in Illinois, and then my wife had 3 kids who lived in the East, and our families lived in the East Coast, and we decided we got to close it back in. So we moved back to New Jersey in 2012, and I've been here since then, taking on a couple of different roles as district administrator, supervisor. I double majored in math and music, so I supervise music departments too, and you can see these growths and these connections between groups. But as I was teaching, my supervisor was a great coach, a great teacher, leader, and he really cared about us as teachers. And then I moved to New Jersey. If any of you know anything about New Jersey, you know that right around 2011, 2012, that is not what was going on here. Like, Common Core got adopted, fine. New Jersey legislated a new evaluation system for teachers, not fine. It all became management and oversight, and I couldn't help lead teachers to be better teachers because my time was taken up with the management duties and what are now the professional things that a lot of us realize get in the way of our real profession, which is getting to know kids and learning about them. So the last 3 years I've been out of school pursuing my doctorate in curriculum and education so that I can end up teaching pre-service math teachers eventually, and consulting and instructional coaching with school districts around New Jersey and around the country, and doing a little keynoting here and there because I happen to have been published with Dave Burgess for my first book, Instant Relevance, using today's experiences to teach tomorrow's lessons. And then my second book, Hacking Mathematics, 10 Problems That Need Solving with the Times 10 group. So that's a little bit about me in a picture, but yeah, I'm married, I have 4 kids, I have a cat now. You can see the hole behind me because we used to have a dog, but that's now in a box out front. Totally different story, but that's where a little bit more detail on me.
Well, Dennis, I really value all the work that you continue to do, especially just getting an update on your life, because I feel like every time I talk to you, you have a new project, you're doing something great. But what I really like is your balance of relevancy, trying to bring the purpose and intentionality into our content, into our classrooms. But then it's also not all, for lack of a better word, fluff, right? For guys that you're part of the Teach Better team, I always say like fluff ain't enough. And Dennis, what I really love is that your work continues to be rooted in best practice with the intention of really emphasizing the value of the content that we teach. And I could not be more of an advocate for that. So can you tell me a little bit about what inspired today's chat topic and how you kind of crafted the questions, maybe around the stuff that you love?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the first stories in my Instant Relevance book came out of a moment where I was sitting next to my son and he was playing an iPhone game where you bounce along and you bounce over these little thingies and they fall out underneath you. And he had also been playing Minecraft at the time. And now in Minecraft, you can join another person's server and play the game together. And he wanted to play this other little iPod game the same way. He's like, I want you to play with me. I'm like, well, I don't think I can play with you. He's like, no, just join me and I want to help get a better score. So meet me at my best and we'll go from there. So that moment was just this child's enlightenment statement of just meet me at my best and take me from there. Because he wanted me to help him get a better score. But what he had said was, I can get to here, but I need something else. I need you to help me along the way. And so that's been a powerful motivating factor for me for a long time, is the idea that although the world of our education and our careers is constructed around a set of standards and processes and goals and expectations and objectives and state level things, the truth is that we have children who are coming in front of us every day who are just vulnerable learners who don't know a bunch of things, who sit next to each other and all don't know the same thing because they all had different teachers. And especially with us as high school teachers too, it's like they're coming from lots of different places and the farther down the line you go, the less likely they are to have had the same path. But that means that we need to spend more time meeting them at their perspective and their location and saying, hey, listen, I'm teaching you Algebra 2 this year. What does Algebra 2 look like? I don't know, because you don't know this, or this. So I want you to know that. And you do know this, and this, but I didn't even need you to know that. But those might be really helpful if we do this. So this is who you are. How do I act with you to move you forward in this path? Like, I don't have to write your map for you, but we can take those directions together and look at the destination. And that's a really, really, really hard job to do.
Yeah.
It is way harder than just taking out the lesson that I taught on quadratic factoring last year and reteaching it again, and then going through the examples of I do, we do, you do, and giving you some practice packets and say, I taught you because I got paid a little bit more this year to do it than last year because that's the way contracts work. And that's not like anybody I know who teaches, but it probably is like more people who teach than I would like to admit. And that's the role of people like us, I hope, and like people who are passionate about what they saw in this chat and feel the same way, is to be the town crier, the news spreader, saying that's not the job anymore. The job isn't I have it, you need it, I'll give it to you and get as much of it as you can. That's what the internet is for. Literally, my son wanted to build a mod on some game and he's 10 now. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He's like, it's okay. I found a tutorial on YouTube. I got it.
Wait, Dennis, can I completely interrupt you to tell you, I quote you all the time about this concept because in your keynote, and this is the dorkiest thing, I'm so sorry, but I sat in the audience and you were going through an example. You were like, oh yeah, my friend, something about the car broke. And you said something along the lines of, do you know what I'm talking about? Where you were like, oh, so he went and took a class and figured out how to fix it. And I was sitting in the audience like, well, that's very responsible. And the whole like gimmick of the keynote, he's like, no, he looked it up on YouTube. And I literally sat in the audience and I'm like, oh, he got me. I get it.
Yeah. And that's the truth. It's like, we can learn almost anything we want to. The information and even the tutorials are out there. So what is the role of the professional teacher right now? It is not the wall between information and student. It is that side-by-side facilitator. It's paddling the other side of the boat so they just don't go in circles. It's being a part of that process and taking on those different roles. And there are a lot of us who have been in the system for a long time who either don't want to change, don't see it the same way, and let's be honest, we have different experiences, we might not see it the same way, or recognize the level of difficulty it would take to change both the nature of their teaching and their interactions and the school system to make that the way it needs to be. So I think, to be honest, coming out of this strange year of COVID-19, it's the right time to look at a full-scale overhaul of what education looks like.
I couldn't agree more. So as you were crafting tonight's questions, because I mean, you asked so many different things of our audience during that hour-long conversation on Twitter. Was there a question that you were either, and I'm going to give you two options because I don't know what necessarily your process was, but either you were excited to ask this question because you were hoping it would spark some discussion, and I can literally think of two specifically that I feel like definitely did that, or one that you were excited to ask because you didn't know what result you were going to get?
Well, there's a little of both in there, because I love questions. Like, as a math teacher, it's funny, but what I hate the most is answers. Like, answers are easy. For any of you who are out there who are math teachers or anything, if you don't follow Robert Kaplinski out there, he created something called open middle math problems. And all you're doing is giving kids an answer. I want you to get to this number. Now, how are you going to do it? It's great ways to develop thinking. And so I love good questions. And so when I think about how I craft a chat or think about questions like this, I tried to lead us through a process. I tried to lead first with the first thing I asked was the which one doesn't belong question. And I love it because it has nothing to do with the chat. But what it does is what it's intended to do in our classroom is put something in front of you, confuse you a little bit, make you make a choice, make you explain yourself, and then make you listen to other explanations to gain perspective. And when I walk into a class to teach something, if what I want my kids to do is look at a situation and creatively try to figure out what's going on before we talk about what's happening and then see what other people think is happening, I don't need to bring out yesterday's math homework to get them ready for that. I need to bring out a which one doesn't belong to get them ready for that, because then their minds are prepared to act in the way that I want their minds to act. Because the next thing I put up in front of them, they'll be like, I wonder what that's about. This is what I think. What do you think? And so I liked putting that first question up there and then revisiting it in the middle in a style that was tied into the content.
Yeah.
Because the purpose was to get you thinking and sharing and talking about something benign to prepare your minds to look at what was next. It's the classic argument that I put out there about why we start our class the way we start it. And I have a whole section of workshops that I do on moving from do now to think now, because I don't need students to do something. I need them to be prepared to think about what I'm going to do next. I don't need them to think about the objective for the day and put it on the board. If they're about to do this, I need to warm them up for this. And it was my time as a coach and as a musician that got me thinking about that. So I was curious to see how honestly, that first which one doesn't belong would fly, to see if people would be actively or interested in engaging in it, and to see if the second one would get anybody to pick anything other than the red box, because it did, because people saw behind the curtain of some of those other words that were in those other boxes and saw, but you know, this could be a good thing. It stands out in a different way. It might work out. So it's great to see the creativity in that. So that was really one that I wanted to see how those would play out together. But what ones were you thinking about?
Well, actually, that's exactly, those are the two that I was thinking about, because I'm totally a visual person in terms of the first thing I did. I was like, oh, this one's red. Clearly, that's the one I'm supposed to pick. And then I tweeted, I went forward with my life. I kept reading. And then I had all these people giving me different perspectives. And I was like, whoa, I thought this was a really easy question. Did you not see the silver ones? I picked the red one. This was so easy.
Low-hanging fruit, yeah.
Exactly. I was like, guys, you obviously didn't do what Dennis asked you to do. But then they kept disproving me with their examples. And then that question came up with the blue boxes and the red. And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, Ray, you're falling for the same track. You really, you got to really look at this question. And I really appreciated, I know this sounds silly, so I apologize, but like, I really appreciated the trick, the thought-provoking nature, because it wasn't just the question that was challenging my thinking, but the entire process of what you were asking throughout the multiple questions you shared. So I couldn't have fell for that any further. It was really great.
But why can't we just do that to our kids, right? Why can't we just fool? We're not. It's funny how you're like, I appreciate the trick, right? Yeah. Like, it's not like the magician, sawing you in half or anything else like that, who's the only one who knows the trick. Like, I'll flat out tell people, like, I ask you things to prepare you for this because I want this from you today. Right. And in that, my students and the experiences that I have with them usually are like, oh yeah, this is what we're looking for here. So let me get into that mindset, and I'm used to it. And then it becomes an understanding of the purpose. And again, going back to my time coaching track athletes, which I loved, and a lot of my analogies come from that time. I first started coaching sprinters and just kind of built up some workouts and things like that. And they were just doing the workouts because they're kids who listen to their coaches for fear of getting yelled at. But it wasn't until I started telling them, hey guys, this is what we're doing today. Here's why. Here's what it's going to do to you. And here's why you two are doing different things, but I need you to work together on this for a little while. And this, that the purpose became clear, and they had purpose behind doing the activity. And when I present them a which one doesn't belong, or an estimation 180, or a different thing where I want them to prepare them to do something, they'll recognize, oh yeah, he's trying to get me to think creatively. And it turned into those which one doesn't belongs. I started to turn them into the game of categories. You know the game categories?
Yeah.
Right? And I love this because in categories you have these 20 letters that you can pick from, and then a list of games and stuff like that, or names. And you pick L, and it comes up with like somebody famous, and you say, go for it.
L, somebody famous.
Yeah.
Literally, it could be anybody with an L name.
Anybody with an L name, go for it.
Can I do Lopez, like Jennifer Lopez? Am I
go for it. Lopez, Jennifer. She writes Lopez, comma Jennifer because she's trying to get points. But I wrote Lopez, comma Jennifer, and so we wrote the same thing, and our points cancel out. Nobody gets the points. So they start to recognize, hey, I want to look for the most unique thing in the situation. And so they start tearing down deeper into it. And then you have the one kid who's like, oh yeah, everybody's looking for something super unique. I'm going to go for the easy one, you know?
Right.
I want the points, you know? I want to say Lopez, comma Jennifer. Yeah. So it's those type of opportunities that they see the purpose and they begin to invest more and learn more. And those are the things that meet students in reality. It's saying to them, hey, I'm a learner too, and I'm interested in this stuff. So this is what I'm doing, and this is why. I don't need to fool you into finally getting that realization of, oh, look at what he got me with today. Although that's fun every now and then. It's, hey, we're part of this together. Let's do this together. So I appreciate that that you enjoyed the trick, you know, because we were hundreds of miles apart when that happened. But here we are talking about how you recognized a need to look deeper into a situation because I prepared you for that. And that's what I try to do as a teacher. And I think we can do as a teacher is show our kids, we are preparing you for things. We're coaching you. We're building your strength. We're building your muscle. We're building your capacity. And really, if you can recognize what you've been prepared for and know, hey, now's the time. That's a powerful moment.
I won't lie, Dennis. It's interesting to me, not only to have this conversation with you, but also to acknowledge areas that I need to grow. And I think one of the many reasons why I love having these discussions with you, why I love hearing you share on all these topics that you're so passionate about, is because this is an area I very rarely learn of. I very rarely stretch my mind in thinking in this way. And to be honest, of the PD that I'm surrounded by, this is not something that is brought up in my world very often. And yet every time I'm engaged in a conversation around this idea, I'm completely enthralled. And so for me, I want to make sure that our network not only continues to connect with Mastery Chat and goes back and reads not only the questions you ask, but the answers that were sparked, but also connects with you, your content, the things that you're doing. Because I really, truly feel that this is a needed area in education that's really going to allow educators to elevate their practice so they can reach more learners. So can you tell us a little bit about like how they can get connected? I know the books exist. Tell us a little bit about that. Obviously, and then everybody here, of course, if you don't want to jot this down specifically, you can go to the Speakers Network. Dennis is a part of the Teach Better Team Speakers Network, and you can read all about him there too.
Yeah, it's funny because people connect with me in so many different ways. It's I should have done the thing where I put my Twitter handle up there on the thing, but I'm not used to this. But you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at MathDennisNJ, and that's an easy way to find me. You can message me, you can tweet me, and you can find more about me personally on just my website, which is DenisSheeran.com with the name right there.com. Close the space in the middle. And did I do it the wrong way?
No, I didn't. I can't figure it out.
Right. And again, you can find more about me, a little bit more about my bio and the stuff that I've been doing with the Teach Better team and the Speakers Network there on their website, or just Google me. It's funny, my daughter's, she came to me the other day. She's like, hey, I won. Like, what'd you win? She's like, most internet famous dad. And I'm like, wait, she's like, we all looked up our dads at school and you had like the most stuff because you had like a podcast. I have the Instant Relevance podcast. You can look up on Twitter at InstantRel. And I'm like, it's just funny because it's like your dad used to beat up the other guy's dad, but now you just beat him up on the internet. Yeah. So look me up, find me there. And I work with school districts all over. A lot right now because of COVID is actually easier to work with school districts all over. I can just connect virtually, but I've been to schools all over the country, and right now I do a lot of local work in New Jersey, working with school districts on coming in multiple times multiple days throughout the year to really develop those relationships, understand the teaching that's going on there, make the incremental shifts in the mindsets of teachers to help them understand how to make this real. And for those of you who are out there looking for this, I actually train a lot of administrators on things like what an effective math classroom looks like, or what does it mean? What are the steps necessary to make some of the shifts in your school and your school culture so that your teachers can feel comfortable trying these things. So I'm doing a lot of that. So if anybody wants to reach out to me in any one of those ways, that's how you get me.
Well, guys, and I won't lie, everybody on the Teach Better family, you know that we really love expanding our family. We love bringing people in and, amplifying their voices. But personally, if anyone needs a testimonial, I've learned from Dennis. I continue to learn from Dennis. And if you're, on the fence of trying to figure out who to bring into your school, I am such a Denis Sheeran fan. So I would advocate for sure to continue to pursue all the ideas, all the trainings that you do, Dennis. I just think you do great work. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Send me a Team Ray shirt and I'll get you a Team Dennis one out there.
I know, right? That's what we need. All right, for everybody here, thank you for joining our Mastery Chat recap. Remember, the Twitter chat is every single Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern. It's an hour long, and then we do this recap afterwards. It's usually about a half an hour. So it's an hour and a half of free discussion of engaging with your PLN and hopefully getting you thinking, moving and grooving, ready for the end of the week to end strong and maybe bring a new idea back to your classroom. The Teach Better team continues to be so busy, so I'm not going to list everything off. However, if you're not subscribed to our events calendar, you can go to teachbetter.com/events calendar and see every single day we are live or doing something. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see everybody else. So.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me today. And everybody out there, stay in touch with me and with both of us. New relationships are the best, and we'll only build stronger.
All right, guys, have a good night. Happy Thursday.
Take care.